Welcome everybody. My name's Karen, for anyone I haven't met yet. And just on behalf of Co-Creators Convergence, I asked Noelle how I could help out a bit with these Thursday calls. And so I have been just assisting and coordinating. CCC has been bringing speakers on for co-creators, for the conversation Thursday night call. So we're here. I put some information in the chat, but I want to say a big thank you to the conversation, which is 24/7. If you haven't checked them out, please take a moment to go on their website. There might be something that draws you in. And of course, many of us here know a lot about Co-Creators Convergence. So tonight we have a phenomenal guest that I get the privilege and honor of introducing, Bob. And even though many of us here on this call do actually know a lot about Bob, he did send me his bio, and I am going to read a little bit because I know that Noelle loves it when I talk about Bob and Noelle and how much they do in the world. So the first thing that I'm going to do is okay, hold on, I'm just reading something. I'm going to re-put the information in the chat about CCC in the conversation. I'm seeing a note that says it's not there. So I want to first tell you a little bit about Bob and Noelle, and I'm just going to read this amazing bio, or else my heart will take over and I'll get all mushy. Bob and Noelle are husband and wife light partners. They dedicate their energy to supporting people, projects, and communities that embody and enhance the light of humanity. They love connecting those who are in the process of remembering their purpose on earth is to love, grow, and evolve spiritually. Bob rewired. Some people like to retire, but not Bob. Bob rewired a 37-year career as an aviation association executive with a limited belief of self. Choosing to move forward as a conscious evolutionary, his multi-year transition to a more awkward state came through personal empowerment work, spiritual liberation, and an expanded worldview since 2010. He and Noelle have traded in their flying airplanes for a journey down the consciously evolving road directed by spirit in sacred service to humanity and the planet. And as many of us know, they're the co-founders of the Co-Creators Convergence. So Bob tonight is going to be, I'm going to let him talk most about what he's going to be doing tonight, but we are at a perfect moment for Bob to be having this discussion. And he mentions that, this discussion won't stand on the shoulders of the expression, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but rather spiritual beings having a human experience. So he's going to see what is it like to be a spiritual person. We're all going to get challenged tonight having a political experience. So I love you both. Bob, I'm going to hand it over to you and let us know what's happening tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you and welcome everyone. So great to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Henry, good to see our picnic party, Ron and Victoria from a couple of weeks ago. It's just great to have everybody here. And Audrey from all the way down the street in Jonesboro, Tennessee. I would like to shake this up a little bit compared to the way we've typically done at least third Thursday calls for a number of years. And it is my intention to do that as best as I possibly can. I've been very excited about this. We're in our morning meditations with Jennifer and others, Flo and others in the mornings, and it came to me of how I should be organizing this discussion to be a lot more about, instead of a lecturer being asked questions by everyone in the Hollywood squares, me asking the questions of you. So that's going to be a part of this evening. And so if you didn't sign up for that, now's your time to get off quick, get out of here. So I would like to spend a couple of moments though, mentioning what I would consider my spiritual journey in a political world to give some context to what we're going to do. And then instead of having a grounding meditation here at the start as we gather around this campfire, let me tell you a little bit about my journey, put context, and then we're going to have a guided meditation that's relevant to the topic of, I hope, spiritual beings having a political experience. And I look forward to your letting everyone know what it was like to be in that guided meditation. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6 questions to throw out and let everybody have interaction with. And I'll be taking notes tonight instead of the other way around, because there's so much to learn about this amazing moment that we're in. Can I have a show of hands for those that are not showing me their glamour shot? Show of hands of how many people think that they were made for these times. You're here on purpose at this time. Well, that's what I thought. And many of you have been the ones that have taught me that I should put my hand up in answer to that question as well. So my journey is also our journey, life partners, my beloved Noel. Prior to that couplehood, I was living the American dream, and when we got together, we were living we've been told was the American dream. And so as it relates to politics in the world, my instructors were my parents. Were they instructors, or were they actually telling me what I was supposed to think and what I was supposed to do? Probably the latter. And as my career advanced, I realized now in the rearview mirror that my view of politics was totally committed to my career interest, and my personal interest as a pilot, as a general aviation pilot, which I have been since I was a senior in high school. And so I wouldn't say I was my stepfather would have told me to be a Republican, so I was a Republican, which of course Republicans in 1965 is different than what that is today. And but my dear mentor in aviation told me once, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm in the aviation party. And so whatever politicians are involved in supporting aviation, that's who I support and that's who I have conversation with. And I realize now, looking back, that's what I was doing for all that time. And in 2007 and through about 2010, Noel and I started off on what I'll call the phase of our personal development, realizing that what we were doing and how we were doing it, saving the money, having the house, having an airplane, having a car and a truck, all that stuff was not really who we were. And our personal development became very quickly our recognition of ourselves as spiritual beings. And we could talk for hours about that journey. Karen was on some of the early hours and days and months and years of that journey with us through the beginning of our spiritual development. And also many of you know that a milepost in our journey, our spiritual journey, and in fact, what we recognize as the political world and the human experience, was related to our meeting Barbara Marx Hubbard in 2011, 2012, and being a part of the Birth 2012 movement and our little cruise around the country as a part of supporting that. Barbara's story, which I'm sure all of you know, of being nominated for Vice President of the United States, which is interwoven in her life's journey and her biography by Neil Donald Walsh, was very impactful for me and for Noel and I as we began to relate to the political human world in a very different way than we had in all prior times. And so that was a big milepost for us. And it was in 13 what really cemented I'll say what focused me a lot was when we discovered Pachamama Alliance. Pachamama Alliance is an international organization, and their mission is about having a sustainable future, one that's spiritually fulfilling and one that's and that one is environmentally sound. And so we got involved in that organization and participated in and very quickly started teaching Awaken the Dreamer symposiums that are hosted by Pachamama Alliance. And we also then followed that up with what is a much more intensive coursework with them, Game Changer Intensive, which we've taken a number of times. Digs a lot deeper into the issues of spiritual fulfillment, environmental sustainability, and social justice. And it was those places that we started to realize we had been viewing, quote, the politics of the world and of our country in a very naive way. In fact, it was kind of interesting. A sidebar is that when we were in Game Changer Intensive the first time, we had breakout groups, and I was in a group with probably a dozen women from California. And it was fun to listen to them say, you know, some of them were talking about how they were activists back in the 60s and in the streets. And they've been activists for years and decades. And they said, their friends were saying, why are you hanging out with all these spiritual people in Pachamama Alliance? And there were others in my small working group that were self-labeled as spiritual people. And they viewed everything from the standpoint that everything's going to be just fine. Everything's the way it's supposed to be. This is the divine plan. If I sit on my purple pillow long enough and meditate, I don't have to worry about politics or any of that other stuff or being in the street. And their friends were all asking them, why are you hanging out with those the spiritual people were saying, why are you hanging out with those radical people in the streets? And the radical activists were saying, why are you hanging out with the spiritual people? And it was at that moment that I realized all the above is the answer for me. And I feel like the answer is evidenced by some of the people on this call and how much I know their work in the world is. And also important at that time for our journey was reading the book by Lynn Twist, The Soul of Money. Noelle will put it in the chat there as a reminder for you. You can grab the chat later, which basically speaks to the issue of is your relationship with money. And I think that is relevant to the subject of being in a political experience. Is your relationship with money aligned with your spiritual values? So I recommend that book to you. And from there, we went on, kind of fanned out from Pachamama Alliance. We got involved in citizens' climate lobby, environmental issues, democracy issues, represent us as an organization. And we just kept widening and widening our engagement in conversations, occasional protests and arrests on Capitol Hill, and being supportive of organizations that have anything to do with social justice, environmental causes, and economic justice. And along that way, we also supported the 2014 March Across America, the Great March for Climate Action. So during that same time, the spiritual part of me was walking a path with Barbara Marx Hubbard, who many of you have walked with either in person in classes or as longtime friends like Victoria and Ron and others. And Noelle and I have been blessed to be on sacred journeys into England and Egypt and Damanhur to have different perspectives of cultures, societies, and frankly, the politics of the world. A completely different view than the 1.5% to 2% retention that I have from anything I studied in college or in high school about world, society, culture, etc. And also very important to me and to us has been our more recent study with the Joseph communications and the relevance that that has to this. So now where I'm finding myself is every day looking for the balance between my spiritual evolution and what is mine to do in the 3D world. I could spend the entire day on Facebook. I could spend the entire day being involved in political causes, political organizations, political movements, locally, in the country, internationally, or I could spend the entire day in our now beautiful home base here of Light Partners and be meditating all day long. And in fact, if I just hung out with many of you on this call and all the beautiful offerings you have in the world and meditated with you, I could be doing that pretty much 24 hours a day. So my life now is about the balance between those two things. And I hope that our conversation this evening, I'm looking forward to the dialogue of understanding your perspectives about how you bring yourself as a spiritual being to being in these times. A lot of us put our hand up and said we were made for these times. We probably, the same ones, would have put up our hand in October or election day 4 years ago. We would have said that as well. And here we are 4 years later. And the world is a very different place. not just in political realm, but in the whole human experience on this planet, is in a very different place than it was 4 years ago. And so what is ours to do is what the conversation I'm looking forward to us having. So with that, I would like to invite us into a few moments of a guided meditation, to kind of set the stage for conversation about what does this mean. So if you're comfortable, you close your eyes, whether you want to go off camera or not, it's totally up to you. And I'll invite you into a few deep breaths. Been a busy day for me. I don't know if the others of you have had busy days or not, but a few deep breaths to connect with our inner self. Breathing in the love that is in this circle this evening and in all of our circles of involvement and influence. And breathing out the light that each of us is and the light that each of us provides to the collective consciousness and light of the world. And another deep breath, and let's journey for a while. Let's journey in circle. Let's sit in circle around the sacred campfire. As we take another deep cleansing breath in, there's all those things that we did today and all our activities, breathing them out. They're all gone. They're all waiting for us later. So we need not concern ourselves with them. We're going to simply sit here in circle around the big campfire. Imagine, if you will, a place that you have been in the past, where you have been in circle with other spiritual family members. Perhaps that's the big perhaps that's the big bonfire up on the Rim Rock at Sunrise Ranch during a co-creators convergence gathering. Perhaps it's something in your childhood around the campfire with family, telling stories, eating s'mores. Perhaps it's in some other environment in your own backyard. Here we are around the fire. We are all spiritual beings. And I'm going to invite us to spend a little time both in our heart of hearts, our deepest heart, of considering the conditions of this three-dimensional world that we're in. Today, 2020. And take a deep breath and bring the love and the light into our hearts. Cleanse our hearts and throw that love and that light out to the entire world. As we sit around the fire, imagine for a moment who's at the fire with us. Everyone on this call, everyone that will listen to this recording later is already at that campfire with us. And you look across the fire to them, catch their eye, smile. Know that they too are the light of the world. Know that they too are contributing to the collective consciousness of moving humanity, our dear Mother Earth, forward into a time of collective consciousness that will benefit all. And let's expand our view around the fire. So there's all of us. Well, there's also, when we look in a different direction, other people that were sitting around that campfire with us that we've already imagined, whether it's our family, our DNA family, our Boy Scout or Girl Scout camp out, our co-creators convergence. And we recognize that there are other people that have joined the circle. Some of them, we recognize their faces. Some of them, we don't. Those that have never been to the Convergence and sat around the Rimrock fire pit, there's some on this call. And so there's some that have joined us here. But as we look around the fire, we're just amazed at the growing number of people that are also sitting around this fire and the light that shines in their heart, because we can see and experience the light that they have there. In fact, as we look across this fire pit, we recognize a few people from the news. Our head mind recognizes them from the contemporary news or stories that we've heard or news that we've heard about things that are going on on our planet. So we recognize Greta Thunberg is now sitting in our circle. And we recognize her as a fellow human being that is here for the benefit of all and helping us on our journey. It's kind of amazing because as we look further around the circle, we're seeing people that we would not expect to show up in a spiritual gathering of spiritual people around this sacred fire, but they're there. The Dalai Lama is in our circle, and we're both honored and recognize that he is honored by our presence in this circle. Interestingly, our head mind is challenged when we look to the right and to the left of the Dalai Lama across the fire pit. Because what we recognize is two young children, and the only way our head mind can describe them is two kids that we've seen in refugee camps on the news in Yemen, in war-torn Yemen. This is kind of startling for the head mind. And so we invite ourselves to drop into our heart mind and recognize, what are we seeing? The Dalai Lama and a couple of refugee children. How do we experience fellow humans on this spiritual journey? And then we quickly start looking around the fire pit and we recognize some of the other people that are sitting around the fire pit with us. We can't believe it. Those kids over on the right side look like kids that we've seen on the news that are enslaved and are mining precious metals out of Mother Earth that we know go into the production of the iPhone that we're using tonight. And right next to him is the Pope. Right next to those children, slaves, is the Pope, also in our circle. Wow. Our mind, as we look around the circle, is kind of being blown, because sitting next to Standing Rock water protectors in their Native American garb is the president of Brazil, who we know factually is destroying the lungs of the planet by what he's allowing to be done to the Amazon. There's Gandhi in our circle. And on either side of them, we don't recognize who those people are, but in fact, they're two members of the Monsanto board of directors. There's Chinese children from sweatshops that make clothes that we wear. And in between two of them, a very distinguished woman who we do recognize, she's holding hands with them. That's Elizabeth Warren. Next to Greta is Rex Tillerson, the former head of Exxon. And we're looking around the circle our mind wants to find other people, and our heart wants to ask us, why are these people in the circle? Well, of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is in the circle. And then we turn a little to the left and look, and Donald Trump is standing right next to her. Wow. We are spiritual beings in sacred circle. And by mention of one name, or maybe two or three, our mind wants us to be in a political experience. Let's take a deep breath together and recognize that this is the world that we're living in. We are living a human experience, some of which is labeled as, articulated as, a political experience, which we choose or choose not to be engaged in whatever way we do, while we are at sacred circle of spiritual beings. All I've named and 7 billion more are in the circle with us. So let's take a deep breath into that knowing. Breathe in love, breathe out light to everyone in the circle. Breathe in love, breathe out light to everyone in the circle. This is a big circle, and as we look beyond, in between a few of these people, we recognize there's an entire circle outside our circle. There's an entire circle of ancestors, completely encircle those of us that are walking the planet today. All of them are the history of the human experience and the history of political experience in the world, and the existence of the spiritual experience of all of humanity through all of time. So let's take another deep breath again, recognizing that this is our opportunity. We put up our hand and said we were made for these times. We can now take our raised hand and put it on our heart and recognize that only each of us can decide what is ours to do as we disperse from this sacred circle. So I invite us to one last cleansing breath in and out, and an invitation to hold dear in our heart this moment of unity and this moment of opportunity. And I would invite all of us to, as we see fit, to flutter our eyes open, rejoin us on the screen in this beautiful circle of the co-creators convergence conversation this evening, so that we can have some time to share what all that brought up for us. Wow. There were some people in that circle I never saw at Co-Creators Convergence, but they were with us tonight. And the fact is, I believe they're with us always. So I have some other questions to ask this evening for a nice, wonderful, joyful, thoughtful conversation from all of you that would like to share. But I would invite an invitation right now to share any thoughts that you have, that your heart has now, about your time in the sacred circle.
Bob, I just want to say I thought was incredible, just to bring everything into our human experience, as so beautifully. I thought it was a wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you for guiding us.
Thank you. Inspired by meditation with you sometime earlier this week, when you asked us about all others in the world. And I recognize that in times past, I probably wouldn't have invited Rex Tillerson into my sacred circle. Other thoughts, other feelings, other heart you'd like to share? Anyone, everyone.
I was I knew immediately you were going to bring the Donald in. And I was hoping for that, because I was hoping that our light can shine there too. And we can look at the not so good in other people and maybe use it to help ourselves become better. And with that, we can shine out, and hopefully they can look at us and see that there's a better way.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed your meditation. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila?
Well, wow. I had no idea where you were going with that. And I'm so glad you did. So much of what you talked about, I would ask myself, you know, I guess, what was my connection with that person, that thing? It's interesting. I guess there was part of me hope, especially when you're talking about topics like the environment and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I connected with each and every one of them for a while. You know, with Greta, obviously we've been out there marching for the environment together. So, you know, where I stand on that. Of course, we met through Pachamama. That's how we know each other initially. We have a Mahatma Gandhi museum that's being built here in Houston. In fact, you and Noelle went with me once to one of their walks, which we just had another one, virtually though. So many of them. Rex Tillerson, one of the women, I'm part of the Houston Women's March, and our finance chair, treasurer, was a vice president for Exxon, and she's friends with Rex. Really weird, really weird. So they know each other. So there's all these little connections going on in my brain as you're saying each one of these. And I'm actually listening to a spiritual audio right now all about the law of one. And so, and I do send prayers to the White House quite frequently. Love and light, love and light, love and light. Hoping for it to penetrate. But I will say it's still a bit of I get taken back when I'm like including people who think so differently than me in the circle of our love. And so it's so powerful to do that, and such a good reminder. And glad we did that. Glad you did that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Who else would like to share? Yes, Victoria.
Yeah, thank you for that, Bob. I thought what I saw is I saw something visually, and I saw a great big pond, but it had no ending. It wasn't like a pond that you usually see where there is an ending. And it was like you threw that pebble in the pond, and then all the rings started to form, you know, out there, and kept going and going. And it was beautiful for me, because it wasn't really so much individual, but it was like these rings, but they were all water, you know, they were one substance. And so that flow of what we are coming out like that, it was just very beautiful visual. So thank you for your journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Rex, I see. Tex, I'm sorry. Tex, Rex and Tex, they're related somehow. Tex, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Bob. I think that's the most effective embrace of the 7 billion from all walks and life from all over the planet that I've experienced especially in such a short time. So thank you for this effective experience of the oneness of humanity, of the oneness of our planetary ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Tex. Yeah, Kim, and then Noelle.
Hi, everybody. So I ended up zoning a lot. So I'm flowing with the feeling that I have and things that are coming. Was speaking with a friend of mine the other day, and she is able to really feel and send love and light to, say, Donald Trump when he was a little boy and a little baby. So there may even be more of a door to reaching people that are designed to break down the caterpillar so that we can have the butterfly kind of thing.
Mm.
That there are cells that are very much designed to break down the caterpillar, and though it may be, I guess in my view, there may be some things that come up as dangerous, I find it somewhat advantageous that he doesn't change, because the wake up continues, and then the choices are more clear, at least in some ways. And then whenever it feels right for you and for Noel, your reason for inviting me, the video, the words at the end will very much be what else I might share that I speak after being 4.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, Kim and I visited in the last 24 hours. Would like to share a creation of hers nearer the end after we've had continued conversation and answers to questions. Really very much on point, Kim. Thank you. Noel, you have to unmute yourself.
Really? Okay. Bob, that was really beautiful. I didn't know what he was going to do, and it just created such a beautiful field. And I just am so, well, I'm going to say proud. It was just so beautiful, Bob. But, and what I really felt was like the circle's getting wider and wider and wider. And then the ancestors kept on saying, we want in there, we want in there. So when you brought the ancestors in, I was going, you're in there. But, it was just such a, we're all eternal, for myself, a spiritual, I'm an eternal being. So I've been an ancestor, and I've been in the bodysuit many times. And so it was just so fabulous to bring in, the ancestors. And I would say, we're multidimensional beings, bringing all our realms of ourselves. I don't know that I fully embody all those realms, but I know that I feel them, and I just really enjoyed it. I just thought it was really spectacular. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks you for that share. Anyone else like to share your reflections of your time at the Circle? Ron.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
You bet.
All right. My experience was visual as you are adding more and more people to the Circle. And actually it kept on expanding. I kept on adding all the scientific greats into the Circle. And as the Circle was expanding, the central fire, the yellow-orange, started to become transformed into a flame of white light.
Wow.
And it became more and more intense. And it was related to our essential nature, even of Donald Trump. When that contribution came together, that unity was expressed in what is essential and good in all of us, in that flame. And it grew taller and taller, this flame of white light reaching upwards. And it was quite an experience.
Wow.
So thank you so much for the visualization.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. And I appreciate you bringing up the great scientist. It's another way of thinking about things. Here we are in a time when popular press and various political agendas tell us we're supposed to believe this in a religious way, or we're supposed to believe this or not believe this when it comes to science. And many of us, if not all of us on this call, are walking in circles of people that are recognizing the coming together of science and spirituality, very much so. And so, yes, wonderful to have all of them at the circle. Anyone else? Yes, Elsie. Oh, Audrey, you're next. Okay, Elsie, go ahead.
I wanted to share, it was a wonderful experience, Bob. Thank you very much. I echo what everyone else has said, even though we each had an individual response. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to once again know that what I'm learning and what I'm transforming into at this point in time is my own true self. And being able to feel that there was a heart connection, I think, in the circle. There's a heart connection with this group this evening. It's a very strong sense and a strong reaction that I've been having lately when I'm with those that I know are on the same path. And what it allows me to do is realize that I am where I'm supposed to be, that it's different from where I used to be, and that what I feel I can contribute at this time is needed. And so it's really just a really strong, visceral feeling of being in the right place at the right time. And that circle was another example for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful. Audrey. And then Kate Roberts.
I found, so first of all, Bob, it was like exquisite. When you brought in Donald Trump, I was surprised that he was like on pause. He was so silent and quiet and listening and absorbing. And it was just amazing that I saw him in that new light. And as you were bringing in more and more people, the fire became like the magma inside the earth, and we were just surrounding the earth.
Wow.
Just embracing it. And then we just all like were stars. We just like shooting stars. We just shot out from the earth and just embraced the entire universe. So it was like so expansive. It included, there was nothing that was excluded.
Wow, wow, wow. Wow, very cosmic. Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you for that experience.
Kate Roberts?
Who has to add to everyone else's voice that, wow, I had to drive. I don't know if there's the moon behind the spotlight, but I'm at Bob's Repair. How is that? Anyway, I had to come in. There's great piano and sax playing, so I had to listen while I made the drive. So I could only see it was 22 people. Such a significant number to me. And then, Bob, there's something about you that was just felt like the most coherent, powerful circle I've really ever been in. You know, I almost pulled over to listen, but I did keep driving. But now at this juncture, I just had to say, and then as the voices of all the people I so admire come across, and as Tex so beautifully said, it felt like an embracing of this whole world. And as I sit at Bob's Repair Shop, I just don't know how to thank you enough. I hope, Noel, that you have recorded this. I want to spread it far and wide.
Wow.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's move on to another question. So, and it's standing on the shoulders.
Don't move on.
No.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
It was a real big wow today. I was driving down I-25, which, if you don't know, Colorado is the biggest highway north-south. And there was an airplane flying a sign. you know, airplanes that advertise flying a sign. What that big sign said was, together.
Wow. Together. That's fantastic. Little capstone of that part of the conversation. I recently took a course with Charles Eisenstein. I think it was 7 weeks long, and it's called Political Hope. And he talked about, eventually got into conversation Black Lives Matter and some other political issues, and talked about how the conversations, and therefore what we're doing with our hearts, is dehumanizing people. And we've watched a lot of documentaries lately on racism in the United States and a lot of other things. And they, and there's a recognition there of that people have been dehumanized. They're less than, or we treat them, or our words, or our policies, or our politics, or our policies through politics dehumanize entire groups of people. And so he asked the question, which has been rattling in my head ever since, is how righteous am I to think how terrible it is that policy decisions made for political reasons or political gain that dehumanizes entire groups of people, immigrants, Black people, whatever. If in my heart, I'm holding that Donald Trump is lesser than, if I'm holding that in my heart, then am I not dehumanizing that individual? Or all the Republicans in the Senate, or whatever, fill in the blank. So just a thought to carry away. How about the question for all my spiritual friends with me in the circle tonight? Many of us believe this is all an illusion. And the way you articulate that and the words that you use of that, the spiritual beliefs that you have, or the religion that you came through, or whatever, but may have different words for it. But if all this is illusion, if it's all just a matrix, we're all just a piece of this and whatnot. My question is, if that's true, or if you feel that way, why bother to do anything? Why bother to act? Which in acting, in doing something, many people would categorize that to be a political act. To join a Black Lives Matter walk, or to participate in a, United Religions Initiative, or whatever it might be, or the Women's March, or whatever it might be. People will say, well, that's a political act to have all those women out there in the street the day after inauguration, 2016. If this is all an illusion, why bother to act? Jennifer is on it.
So this is a beautiful question, and I respond to it quickly because a long time ago we used to say everything matters and nothing matters. Kind of our an epiphany we had. Me and Gina and Leanne and a few of us had this epiphany. But I was reading at the time Adi Shankara, which is from the Vedanta tradition, and he was a young, very young man, and he was asking these same questions as teenager, and answering them back in the 8th century, I believe it was, or way back. And here we are, and I was in my 50s when I was asking this question. Why, if it's all illusion, it's all Maya. But for me, it's all about living the truest experience my soul wants. And the experience is engaging in the life that I'm in and just living it fully. And knowing that, sometimes pain's just another sensation, knowing that we go through pain, but we're experiencing that too, and embrace it and understand it. And so that just comes back to what you said about bringing that full circle, Trump and all these people, those experiences, and realizing that, as above, so below, outside of me, inside of me, embracing all of me in that experience and all the different levels. And I think depending on what level of consciousness you're peaking out at, because we're in all of the conscious levels, the whole spectrum all the time. When I'm very in that knowing flow, everything's illusion. When I'm down sitting there voting at the polls, it's real. It's the experience. So we embrace all the different levels. So it's both everything matters and nothing matters.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Others, if it's all just an illusion, why bother? Marty?
Jennifer, you just made me think of something that came up actually when we were sitting in a circle. And it was something that I read some time ago, and it was
Great. I'd love a menu.
it was a question about why Hitler existed, why someone's so evil, why I think the question was why God allowed someone like Hitler to exist, and the answer to that question was evil has to exist so that you can see good. The contrasts allow, evil allows you to see good, basically, was the answer to that question. And it as you were bringing people into the circle, what was happening was I was realizing for each one of the people that you were bringing into this circle, the contrast. I was realizing that for each one of those people, it was that same thing. It wasn't necessarily good versus evil, but the contrast had expanded my consciousness, my understanding. So it was, in a way, that same sort of feeling of everything and nothing, because sometimes it depended on the perspective, and like Rex Tillerson, I had one perspective and one feeling. The Pope, I had another different perspective and another different feeling. And something might prompt me to want to act, and then another thing might maybe not. So it was like all these different levels of perspectives and all these different levels of feelings and all these different perceptions of realities, and some mattered and some didn't, and then actually it brought me to my understanding of my role in all of this, well, as it is today, because I'm still evolving and my understanding is still evolving. But one thing that I do know, and I only know when I feel it. When I go to North Carolina during the winter, and I was last year in March, I was walking on the beach, and it was when I understood that there was a pandemic, and I was walking along the beach, and I meditate usually on the beach, but my meditation turned into prayer. And it was prayer for the country, for everyone else. It wasn't about me. It was, I don't remember the words exactly, but I do remember that it wasn't about me. And it was, there's a fine line between meditation and prayer, but it became outer rather than inner. And I all of a sudden realized that this was part of my role, was to pray for others in the pandemic. Part of the reason I was here was to pray for others during the pandemic, if that makes any sense. And I'll I'll stop there. I mean, it was just a matter of because I felt it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And kind of brings me to another question, and if anyone else would like to respond to that question as well as this, it kind of holds hands with the earlier one, is that because, and you mentioned the pandemic, so all of my spiritual friends have told me all the good things that have resulted from the pandemic. And they have these metaphysical and illusion and being able to see more of the darkness and having us come together and being more creative in the ways we connect with each other, all these good things that happen because of a worldwide pandemic. And but meanwhile, over in the political speak world, COVID is a political discussion now. We were told when we did 2 hours of training last night to be poll workers on Tuesday, that we can't even talk about it with the voters that come in when we're working the polls, because it's a political subject. Masks are a political, whether you wear a mask or not, is a political statement, political subject. Climate change is a political subject. And so the question that brings up for me is that, like, what is our spiritual practice? First off, you can agree or disagree with that statement that COVID is political. I happen to believe that we've been trained to say that it is political, or that masks are a political statement or not, as opposed to a different way to approach dealing with some people wear masks and some people don't wear masks. But would anyone like to share how your spiritual practice, or what spiritual practice you use that leads you into action in this human experience, in the political experience or the human experience? So what is your your spiritual practice that then results in the doing, if you will? Audrey?
Just getting myself off mute here.
There you go.
So the only thing that we have, to go back to your last question, is why would you take action if it's the illusion? And then with this current question, it's just all we have is the moment. And if we are in that moment being led and we follow that inner guidance, that intuition to take an action, I think we need to follow it. And sometimes it's not logical. It's because, well, we all know gluten shield, but the gut is the second brain. And as we follow that, we are being more authentic than if we only use our cranial brain. Now, I know that it does appear in this country that masks is political, climate change is political, that COVID is political, but they're not. COVID is COVID, a mask is a mask, climate change is climate change. And we are experiencing it as being political, but when we could go back to the essence of what it really is, we don't need to bring politics into it.
Anyone else like to share about either of these last two questions? And in part, when you're saying, Audrey, I also am always grappling with the question, what's the way to have that, what you're talking about, what's the way to have that conversation that with people who want to make the conversation a political one? Kate, you have your hand up.
Oh, I didn't mean to. I must have hit something by mistake. I just heard the most beautiful rendition of Imagine, but of course it's over now.
Wow. Anyone else? Karen. Yes, Karen. Karen, then Kim. Yep.
So yeah, if it's all illusion, why bother doing anything or acting? I don't know. And you know, you wrote something in your thing about the act of not engaging is an element of the human experience. And I know for myself, this has really just been such a point of philosophical conversation in these last 3 years, because more and more in these last 3 years, I've been doing more offering light and love as my action. So then that piggies back into spiritual bypass. Am I taking a spiritual bypass? So that was a big one for a long time. And then for me, it came to, well, what action do I need? How much action do I need to be taking for myself to determine that I'm not just doing it? So it's interesting what was just said, you know, about masks and COVID, and, you know, it's not political. And I just had a very personal experience last night with, I do have a family member, and he tends to send videos and things that are a little more saying, is climate control even an issue, or is it just made up? So this went sent to all of our family. And so I'm one of 6 kids. This is both of my parents. There's 10 grandchildren. And I have to say, I was very proud that my second son, who rarely speaks, I mean, if he speaks, you listen. He's very just quiet, not real opinionated, but wrote this beautiful email about how personal it touched him, because climate change is real, and what steps he's done, from eating meat only twice a week or walking, or so just really beautifully laid out. And then another happened to be one of my sons. I was again proud, but my oldest one just chimed in his feelings and saying, thank you for opening this conversation, and let's have this. So I go from action, like, is that an action step? You know, how much action? And this is all, like, I'm going to stop talking because it swirls for me. And so I'm so grateful that we're all here. And I have, you know, so much respect for so many people in this circle that are acting every day. And I know that, you know, for the most part, comparison is the death of joy. However, sometimes a little healthy comparison is good for me. So I like to compare myself to Bob and Noel and what they're doing in their political action. And then where's my place in it? And I have for a long time been offering my love to Donald Trump and many other people who, you know, Hitler and so on and so on. So tonight, and I've gotten, if I've shared that with other friends, I've gotten a lot of slack for it. Like, I'm just a Pollyanna and I'm XYZ, yet I've just done it anyway. So tonight I felt the power of us in this circle, and that meditation that you did tonight, amplifying that, even if it's a small handful of people offering love and light to every single person in this world. Tonight it up-leveled through that meditation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's part of this challenge for us in the human experience, is what language to use, how to have the conversation. It's so beautiful that you know, is brought up by a family member that's really, then the conversation is allowed to start amongst 3 generations. Wow, that's fantastic, really fantastic. I find myself more and more saying, whatever the kids say, I'm with that. So want to join Spirit Club. Noelle, would you please we got to watch our time, thank you. Would you please put in, we also came across something, Noelle, what was it called with Dr. Estes that you all might want to grab the chat when we're done near the end here. We Were Made for These Times by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And it is it's a written piece, and which is absolutely beautiful, given that everybody on the call says they're made for these times. Maybe that's something to share with ourselves every once in a while when we need to do that, particularly during election week, because we will not, if any of you are under the illusion that we're going to have election day this year, please abuse yourself of that. It will be an election week at a minimum. Maybe by the time the lawsuits are done, it might be election month or 2. So not predicting, not being negative, but my realistic mind says that. So would anyone else like to share on any of these questions so far? I have another one I can toss out, but anyone else like to share? Yeah, Flo.
Okay, so I'm going to combine the question.
Yeah, great.
And whether it's an illusion or not, I'm here, and it's my life, and it's the life of those around me and the people that I love. And we are one in this illusion if it is an illusion. So I have to go with what my heart and soul speaks to me. And if that speaks to me that I need to go out and march, then I'm going to go out and march. If it tells me that, sorry, you can't do it this time because you have this bubble of people that you're taking care of during this COVID time, then that's how I have to react. And and another thing that you had said, the first part about you not seeing the side of Donald Trump, and a lot of times I think of myself as being a hypocrite because I'm judging people who are judgmental, and where does that come from? So I'm really, like everybody else, struggling a bit at this time, looking at COVID as so many possibilities and opportunities, and trying to take as much time as I can to look inside at my divinity and the divinity of all of this that's coming together with this. And at the same time, it's hard not to be political because the feelings that are coming to my soul and grabbing my heart become political as things are like this, and you really have a feeling like, oh, that's going to be so bad for my grandkids and my grandkids, and, we need to stop. So it's a struggle and it's a swirl, Karen, you're right. It's all swirling inside there. And from one minute to the next, it's just that I have to keep looking inside and feeling what feels right for me. And coming to places like this where I can look up to people, the people that I'm seeing, I'm looking up to and saying, yeah, I want to be like that. That's good. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll be holding this conversation, dear, in the 12 hours that we're being poll workers next week, because it won't be any deeper in the belly of politics to be a poll worker. And so I'm going to be remembering all of this conversation. Kim, you had something, and somebody else had their hand up also. Oh, Victoria. Yeah, go ahead, Kim. Listen.
Oh my goodness, so much, and I'll do my best to consolidate. And I wanted to just say thank you deeply to everyone that are here, and for this very rich and embodying beingness and conversationing, I would say. I wordplay a lot. So I've rebuilt my body in my life 3 times. The last one was a serious head injury in a car accident. I ended up on trial, my choice, with the insurance company to do a lot of work, and did a lot of work so that I was not proving myself or anything else, but I was getting truly that was the choice I was to make, even though technically everybody was saying the odds were very much against me. What I learned through that, and if you're wondering, did I win? The answer is yes. I won maybe 15% of the value of my case when they offered me 1 to 2% in the beginning. But the deck is stacked. And what I learned with that is I was called the victim in that language, in that dialogue. And that I needed to be able to dialogue that dialogue if that was needed, but not to be that dialogue. And so for me, it's bouncing off of many things that have been said. It's if indeed this is an illusion, and that's a belief structure, but if indeed it's an illusion, I'm choosing to be in it. And therefore, how do I create the greatest value for all that I can? Otherwise, why be here unless, I don't know, you could have an experience of skating by, I suppose, if you want to call it that, or whatever you dialogue it as. But so there's that. I was in Italy for a month, and this relates to a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh called "Call Me by My Name," I think it's called. And it has to do with we have the ability to be anything and everything. And I was in a museum, and at that point I still very much had the head injury that I'd sustained. And I was in a museum, and I was looking around at all the art. And for a little more context, I was staying with somebody that I knew for a month in Italy, and he knew that my mother's side of the family was Jewish, and he had recommended that when I came back to go to Germany and to go to Dachau and Auschwitz. Okay, so this was in my sphere at the time, and the fact that I'm sharing it, this is the first group I've ever shared this into, because I've walked very gently around what I will finish with. So I was in this museum with all this beautiful art, and what came through is, I am that too. I am all this beauty. I am that too. And then came in Dachau, and I am that too. And it was an extremely, it expanded greatly. It was very profound. Later in my journey, I found myself waiting for a train at an outdoor, sitting on a bench. A woman was next to me, and this man came up speaking Italian, and I don't speak Italian very well, but he was speaking Italian, and he got down on his knees, and it felt like he wanted something. And I began to watch myself become uncomfortable. And I went to this place of, I am that too. And it all resolved. He relaxed, and he chose it was fine to get up and go on with his day. So this is an activity that I've done in workshops, but I am that too. And that's helped me a lot. A couple other thoughts, that my brain thinks my body knows. And with heart math, there's this, there's your gut, there's your heart. And I seem to go out to the universe and come back a lot, that we're cells of a larger being, a larger body. Even in the American English, I have my physical body. We have, interestingly enough, an organizational body. We have a political body. We have the body of our country. We have the earth body, and we have a universal body. I find that fascinating in American English language. And so if I'm a cell of a larger body and I have a heart, then why wouldn't every single cell and all the spaces in between of my body have at least the resonance of a heart too? And so when I come from that place, that my whole being is heart, then it's a very different platform. And one last thought, that yes, we're all sacred beings, we're all part of the intelligence of life and all the possibility of spaces in between, and it is all divine. And if someone is toxic, and if someone is showing up in a toxic way, or say as a poisonous snake, not that snakes are bad, but then it's important for me to be able to be both and.
Yeah.
And to recognize that, or recognize that, as I could say. So,
right.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Kim. And so we want to close up as close as we can to the bottom of the hour. There are a few people that already would like to speak some more, and I would definitely like to hear from them. Also have a very special closing. We have a little short piece, a video that Noelle's going to play for us that was done by Kim, and also I think a wonderful and quiet way for us to close our circle together this evening. But before that, I've got in line, where have I got? Victoria, Tex, and Elsie. Victoria.
Hi. Okay, I'll try to make this within 2 minutes. within
Okay.
a minute and a half. Okay, first of all, toward the first question about the illusion, I've been a student of non-duality, and there are many definitions of illusion, many definitions, many different viewpoints on that. Also, I like to think of it with one analogy that I have I've read and really taken in is that that we are like the screen in a movie. Now, some of you may have heard this, and the movie is our life and what's going on. We're the screen. So imagine the screen in the movie, and then there's the movie going on, the drama of the life, all the drama from the beginning of time, drama, 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 drama. You know, there's been a lot of drama, and that's been going on. So the question is, how close is that drama to the screen? How intimate is that drama that's out there to the screen? So in my training, it is to try to discover and stay standpoint of the screen. And when that's being done, when there's given that consideration, which is a big thing, that I am the screen, then whatever part I'm playing in the drama, that changes that. I become a conscious player on this earth. And then my actions, whatever they are, can be more holistic, more evolutionary, whatever we want to say, whatever consciousness would dictate. So that's one thing. The other thing, about what was the other one?
About your spiritual practice that leads you to action. Maybe.
Okay. Well, one thing is I've been reading a lot of the bestsellers, and I really recommend Caste to anybody by Wilkinson. It will change your entire thinking about race in this country. I mean, maybe everybody here knew it. I did not know what I'm reading, and I've been in this genre for 40 years. And also, there's another book called Why We're Polarized. And so, when you read these books, I realize that the conditioning that we've all been under, all of us, every single one of us, for such a long time, the polarization actually was a decision that was made by our government. There was a time people split their votes, and there was a time that it wasn't so solid. They said, you know what, let's make it really clear how different we are, because then people can have a decision. See, it was a simple little thought, a mind thought, let's make this different so all of us could make that decision, rather than saying, oh, I used to be an independent and vote for, different people. And that has gone awry. And we have been really forced into opposites and into strong opinions. And that keeps us from really like being in touch with our true nature, because our true nature is not opinionated. So that's my practice is not because I think I'm right in my opinions. And, I think they're very valid. The thing is, I don't want to be, manipulated away from clarity and my true source and a position that is not emotionally destroying me and destroying my life and how I live. I just don't want that, although it pulls me so much. So the constant thing to come back to that screen, that constant feeling that, that the fact that I want to be real. I don't want to be a Democrat or Republican or anything.
Right. Don't want to be programmed. Great couple of books, Why We Are Polarized and Caste. Those are fantastic. Noelle, if you make sure those videos are queued up, but also if you would dump in, and then we'll hear from Tex, dump into the chat that other people can grab. We put together a list of resources that might be helpful to a lot of people here,
Okay.
or pick and choose them. Yeah. go
Elsie
ahead.
was next, and then
Oh, Elsie.
Yeah,
Elsie in the text. Okay.
I will just take a couple seconds just to reflect. And what I wanted to say about the idea of illusion is that I simply don't believe I'm living an illusion. I think that everything that we're experiencing is real. I do believe, and this is my belief, that we're living in 5D. It's already here. I don't know that we quite know how to maneuver through it every day and what to do with that, because it's energetically different from what we've, especially those of us who are older like I am, have not been brought up in that, in that type of experience. I believe that what I'm experiencing is very real, and what it requires of me is to pay attention to what matters. Emergence that we're going through now, it matters. Being able to feel more empowered, being able to take in what I'm experiencing and what I'm sharing with even these kinds of conversations like we're having tonight, helps me be more empowered to fit into this time in ways that will be beneficial both to me and to the universe. I do believe, as some of you know, it's because I love to work with creativity, that we need to be asking ourselves again and again, how are we going to do things differently? Because we're being asked to do that. And for that, we live in the infinite playground, where we have the opportunity to go there and to play with ideas and to play with each other and to play with interacting and to co-create, I think, in the very best way that Barbara would have liked to have seen us do. But for me, it's very real, and it's difficult because not everybody is there. But when I have an opportunity to share with people that I know understand, it means the world to me. So thank you for this evening, Bob.
Thank you, Elsie. So whether it's an illusion flow and you deal with what's in front of us, or it's reality, Elsie, we deal with what's in front of us. From heart. Thank you.
Yeah,
wonderful. Tex, did you have something you wanted to share?
Thank you. I'm so happy I'm coming on after Elsie. I agree with her 100% plus, and I could stop at that. I will share a little story which has been quite a balm on my soul this week, since the last weekend. I'm originally from the Seychelles Islands, and I left, I bailed out in 88. Within 1 week, myself, wife, and 3 kids, I packed them all off and we came over to Canada. Anyway, Seychelles was independent in 76. There was a coup d'etat in 77. And since then, there's been the same group at the head of the country until last weekend, in democratically recognized elections by international observers. There's a new president, democratically elected, and that party, which had been the opposition, is in power even in the National Assembly with a 2/3 majority. And the transition is happening very smoothly, quite smoothly. For the first time, there was a televised presidential candidate debate. And I was very impressed. I was even more impressed than with our continental debate recently. Anyway, that's maybe I'm a bit biased there. Anyway, I'm convinced that this is not an act that we're living. In fact, as you spoke, Bob, you had mentioned a few times the word act, and it occurred to me that I'll stop using that word act. There'll be actions, but I feel that we are in a process of praxis, that is living our conviction. So as a spiritual being having a human experience, I'm involved daily. It can be, as you said yourself, being still somewhere, having a walk with the dog. It can be engaging in so many areas. I'm involved in very, how can I say, interesting, promising initiative out of Quebec here to promote collaborative solidarity in effective democracy. So to me, it's sacred activism, and that's engaging self, my spiritual self, living this experience with conviction, I say, with optimism and hope. And well, there's of course one needs to improve here and there, but we have to discern from the beauty of creation. We have to discern from good, how can I say, hopeful messages. I mean, like what's been happening in Seychelles recently, and so many other things, you know. So I saw one snowflake come down, I think it was yesterday morning, and there was no more snow around here. So I enjoyed seeing that one snowflake come down. Anyway, all the best to you all, and thanks a lot for hosting this evening again, Bob, Noel, and everyone here. Elsie, also for your leading me into this, for a good intro for my own my own few minutes. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you, Tex. Thank you for being with us. Been regular here on Thursday nights recently. We really appreciate that, and all of your insights. Noel, if you have it queued up, I would like to, and first off, I'm recognizing that we're just past the bottom of the hour. I would like to share a little, it won't be the whole clip from Kim, but I would like to share the front end of it. Many of us are talking about being for something rather than against something. And so, Kim, if you do a quick introduction, Noel will play this video. And then
Sure.
I want to tell you, and then after that, I want to tell you about next week for a minute. And right after that, a very quiet closing.
Okay, everybody, this is, the recording is from a book of mine called Vice Versa Verse. And I've been asked for the last couple of years to make a video of it because of what it says. If you'd like to see the whole thing, you can go onto my wall on Facebook. Kim Conrad Visionary is my facebook.com wall, not my personal wall, but the easiest one to get to. And I'd love your feedback, or go to YouTube. My YouTube channel is YouTube with Kim Conrad. And I'd love your feedback and sharing it. And here you go, to not take up very much time. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Okay, Noel.
Are you for or against? We used to say. Often we did not know how else to get our way. To live, to create, to manifest our dreams. How we stood so strongly for forced us against what we opposed, it seems. Defining ourselves by what we are not has cornered us in this convoluted spot. When our right is born by making others wrong, we dance for dominance all day long. What if, while standing so passionately for, we embrace the contrast to meld in rapport? Light does not live to be against the dark. When light is being for, dark receives its part. You may have day, I may have night, yet both exist continually when you don't have to prove you're right. We are coming to know all things are related in this wisdom where all are created. Our left hand and right hand are opposite parts of a whole, yet the whole does not oppose itself, it houses our soul. Mother Earth and all relations are in this joint venture. Release being self-indentured in our adventure. It's time. Time to be valued opponents and amiable allies. A blessed tension that builds to ascension. Opposition is a creation of the mind. Being opposite is a natural state where reflection is refined. Encountering differences, do you think your thought or mine? What if instead they both could combine? What if a polarized world were a thing of the past? Now we have the ability to live whole at last. To live whole because we're starting to see we are all part of unity. Miracles await us as we begin to soar, flying past boundaries that constrained us before. What if the cells of our body and us were to choose, simply choose, to live and be heaven here at last? So violence and imbalance are things of the past. Cells changing the whole instead of the other way around. From all this deep awakening, we live in heaven found. So, are you for or against? We used to say. Now we can co-create our world in a magnificent way, holding your view while also seeing mine, brings us higher and deeper at the same time, uniting us together in our timely rebirth, building this garden of heaven on earth. Summon our hearts, remove all doubt, allow and create heaven all about. The time has come for us to let go of who we thought we were, to become who we are now designed to be, so we thrive it through as a world that works for all of life. You came here to be a part of this time. You are stout-heartedly designed for these times, or you would not be here. We are the leaders we have been waiting for. It's time to rise, within ourselves and together, like the phoenix from the ashes, like the butterfly from the caterpillar. It's time to rise together. Together with all of life, we rise.
So we are stout-heartedly built for these times. Thank you so much, Kim. I really appreciate that. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What an evening. Thank you for all those that have stayed a little bit extra. I have a special treat for you here to close out this evening. I want to tell you next week, it's going to be delight. We are going to have Peter Melton, who a number of us know, some of us do not. Peter is a great spirit, cleverly disguised under the name of Peter Melton, and a creative visionary and founder of the Unity Sign, someone who we met along the Consciously Evolving Road, inspired by Barbara Marx Hubbard, has been in our life since 2012. And excuse me, Peter was on the physical Caravan of Unity across America from August 28 in San Francisco at Grace Cathedral all the way to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. And so he has a lot to share of a perspective of what it was like behind the scenes to experience this country and looking at its beautiful unity for an entire month. So I'm really looking forward to spending time with Peter next week. Same time, same bat station. So to close this evening, we thought we would share something with you instead of us having our usual, let's all open our mics and say goodnight to each other, but quietly going into the night. Very appropriately, I think, to our moment on Thursday before election week 2020. And I'll tell you that this is one of our other dear Co-Creators Convergence community members' gift to us to close out the evening. We're going to have Pamela Jane Duran sing to us, and then we'll just quietly fade away into the night to return to our fireplace, to our bonfire circle. This specific version of Love Is All by Pamela was done, I see Flo is smiling, was done about 4 years ago this week, when a number of us participated in the Thousand Goddess Gathering on the Washington Mall. And they even allowed me to show up too. And after the Thousand Goddess Gathering and the power that all that was, we walked over to the White House. 4 years ago, you could stand across the street from the White House. You could actually see the White House through the wire fence that you'll see in this video. Noelle and I have been there more recently, 2 times, in August and in September, and you can't even see the White House because it's a fortress, as where you'll see in this picture Pamela singing. And so it seems so appropriate for us to fade into the night with this thought, standing in front of the White House and hoping that love is all and love will be that which resides there.
Holy wind, blow through me, cast away my suffering, sing your truth down to my bones, for love is all, love is all. Holy wind, I'll do my part, make a sail of my heart, bind me to your ship of love. I hear you call, love is all. Sweet Sophia, make us wives. Shakti, fill us with your fire. Oh, Shekinah, make us whole. For love is all, love is all. In a world of war and woe, wash away these tears that flow, warm our hearts so cold with fear. Draw us near, draw us near. May all beings be set free from their pain and suffering. Holy wind, the angels call, for love is all, love is all. Holy wind, the angels call, for love, love Love is all. Love is all. And there's the holy wind. Holy wind. Shakina. Woo! Ruach. Love is all.
Love is all, everyone. Peace and blessings. Good night.